all in all, it was super positive. A lot of the things that we were fearing, like when you think of the worst case scenario, no one is going to show up, everyone's going to leave, and we're going to start from scratch. And we kind of quickly worked out, we're like, oh, okay, well, this isn't going to be for everybody. People were treating us as that sort of last option. People would just come and go, and they felt like they could just, do a couple of classes here, leave, come back whenever they wanted to.
Hey, it's George Fourie. Welcome to the Martial Arts Media Business Podcast. Today I am with Daniel Jancek. How are you, Daniel?
Good, George. How are you?
Good. Did I say Jancek? Did I say it in the
Yeah,
proper
yeah, nailed it.
Czech
Nailed it.
accent? Cool. All right, cool. So I'm going to give a brief intro, but I'm going to let Daniel tell the story, because this is sort of a cool part where I get to interview people that are in the partners group. We tell a bit of a case story, but it's also we get to chat about things that just probably don't just come up in conversation. So great opportunity for me to get to know Daniel better and just talk about his journey in martial arts. They've had great success in martial arts and over the last year, especially going full time. So we'll dive a bit deeper into that. But yeah, welcome to the call, Daniel.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So I guess just for start right at the beginning, for those of you that don't know who you are, just give us a bit of background. Your journey, martial arts, where you got started and so forth.
Love to. So I basically was a bit of a energetic kid, I suppose you could say, when I was really young, and had a lot of energy that I needed to release, and little bit aggressive at times. I was not the most well-behaved kid, so got into football at a really young age when I was 4 years old. And when I was about 5.5, my mum and dad thought it'd be really good to get me into martial arts once a week. So I bought a newsletter home from school. There was like a newsletter pamphlet drop that I got in school, and I took that home to mum and handed that to her and went for our first lesson. And really never looked back. So I'm 35 now, and going close to 36. And so it's been a good 30 years that I've been doing martial arts nonstop for. But I started as a 5.5-year-old kid that thought it looked pretty cool. I liked the logo. That's what sort of got my attention. It was a boxing kangaroo, and the rest is history.
You've dropped some good little marketing ideas there as we start, right?
Yeah.
Got a newsletter, boxing kangaroo. Obviously, for those listening to in Australia, that's kangaroo is the animal. But I guess you can have a local reference to something else for kids, whatever that whatever that might be. But interesting. So things that probably still work, right? Newsletter grabbed your attention and you pass it on to your parents. Cool.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
All right. So 30 years. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. And just for reference, so which style and styles have you been focused on?
So when I first started, it was called Australia's Youth Self-Defense Karate. So my first coach was a black belt in American Kempo. So he basically started in Sydney in 1994, and I ended up training with him pretty much up until he retired, which was only a few years ago in Kempo karate. It slowly transitioned into more of a freestyle martial art. He was able to introduce some, a lot of grappling, a lot of BJ jab, some more sort of modern striking, I suppose you could say, like kickboxing and stuff. So it was an evolving art, which was really good, kept me interested. And then when I was a teenager, I started training a little bit more in Muay Thai, a little bit more grappling, started seeking, different styles, I suppose you could say, just try to broaden my knowledge a little bit in different styles. And that's, what I sort of trained from a teenager onwards.
All right. So Kempo karate, Muay Thai, varying the styles. And so you mentioned the same coach, you trained with him just till 3 years ago.
Yeah. So he was basically, I started teaching for him when I was 15. So I was an assistant, came through the leadership program when I was a young teenager, probably started in the leadership program maybe at about 11, I suppose you could say. Started helping out in classes and holding pads and running stretches and all that kind of stuff. And then at 15, the opportunity came up to start running a couple of locations on my own. Obviously, I needed to have my parents' support with that, being that I was only 15, and parents were super supportive. So I basically started running 3 locations as a 15-year-old, and then assisting at like another 2 or 3. So it was very much like every afternoon was some form of martial arts. And then basically taught for him for many, many years, and then he sort of retired, and that's when I started Seven Strikes Martial Arts.
Okay. So Seven Strikes Martial Arts, so that was completely independent from your
Correct. Yep, correct. The style that I trained in under him was called Kempo Freestyle Academy. It used to be called Australia's Youth Self-Defense Karate, but it rebranded sort of when I was a teenager to Kempo Freestyle Academy. And that's who I taught with for many, many years. And then when he retired, that's when I rebranded and started my own club. Yep.
So, couple of years going, Seven Strikes Martial Arts. So now you grew. Take me through the growth journey, because when I met you and Amy, you had, oh, how many students? Was it good 600, 700?
Yeah, it was quite a lot. It was sitting at about 500, 550, sort of range between that. Yeah.
Okay, so walk us through that journey. Like, what got you to 550 and the multiple locations? How many years are we talking, that journey from getting started to 550?
At the peak, I would say the most amount of students I had was before COVID. And that was when it was sort of sitting at around 600, 650. And that was when I was still teaching for Kempo Freestyle Academy. Um, and then obviously, like many other businesses, COVID really, really hurt us, and we had to transition to online classes. When we came back from online classes, we instantly lost like 50, 60% of students, and we had to rebuild it back up, which we managed to do. And then obviously when we started Seven Strikes Martial Arts, I was very fortunate that I was able to, because my coach retired, I was able to basically transfer all of those students. They basically just stayed with me. So putting on all the groundwork from a 15-year-old up until that happened was probably key. I remember when I first started, I think out of 3 locations, I was like 80 students, and, I was a young teenager, and, thought I knew everything probably for a little bit there and could conquer the world. And took me a little time to find my feet, but yeah, we ended up building it up to a good number. That's pretty much how it got there.
Very cool. I mean, it's great that you got so much experience at such a young age, and you didn't start at zero, but you started at a base which just took you way further than, I think a lot of people can't imagine
Yeah, yeah.
that
I think
many
a lot of
students.
my lessons at that young age were through mistakes. You know what I mean? I mean, you got to go through that to make the right adjustments and learn from it, right?
Can you recall mistakes? Like, what are like the big roadblocks and things like that change in your thinking and approach, through good times and bad times?
Yeah, look, I think I can definitely remember, like, I've always thought, martial arts was going to be my calling. It was always going to be what I did for a living, and um, something that I did for the rest of my life, I suppose you could say. But I didn't really have, I suppose, I didn't think it was possible when I was really young. I was kind of just, oh, this is a job. This is what I turn up to do. It's, I'm getting paid to do this. How good is it? Excellent. I didn't actually see the bigger picture. And I remember thinking to myself, saw my coach had made a living out of it, and he was obviously, doing really well. And I was like, maybe I could do this myself one day. And the penny really dropped sort of after COVID, I think. I was always sort of working multiple jobs, and after COVID, and we started building the club back up, having that feeling of not having martial arts like we did. We had to teach through a computer screen, and sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. And I was kind of like, well, pretty sure I want to go all in on this now. And yeah, very fortunate that I'm able to do it for a living now. Yeah, couldn't be happier.
Very cool. So walk us through that, right? Because we met, I should be clear on the time, but it's not that long ago. We're looking.
It was the start of this year. Yeah.
We started working together in January inside Partners. And so, yep, you guys have got, walk us through the logistics, because you've got multiple part-time locations, student numbers, etc.
So we have 8 part-time locations. So we're a mobile martial arts. We don't have a full-time center as of yet, but that's always been sort of the end goal for me, is to open up a full-time facility and still have these the satellite locations sort of running as well on the side. Sitting at roughly 350 students. We did have a little bit of a downturn in, I suppose you could say, our memberships when we joined up. One thing that we sort of identified really early, George, was that we were severely charging under market value for our services. And that was a real sort of needle mover for us. We had to make sure we made those adjustments pretty much straight away, which we did. And, I've never been so so scared of anything in my life business wise because it was obviously a big change to what I was used to. But I mean, that was sort of the one thing that started everything.
I don't want to give my version of the story because it's your, like, you went through the whole journey. I guess I'll
Yep.
add my parts to it. So that was a big thing for you, right? Because we started working in partners. Yep, you had, I think you had way more students then. You
Yeah.
weren't probably in that
Yeah. We were
four,
sitting,
500.
yeah, about 450 to 500. Yep.
Yeah. But you were undercharging. And so the first things that we did, we relooked at the pricing. And I know that was it was a heavy thing because we went at I remember Amy getting on the calls and like walking through it. I guess, but walk me through that because I think this is something that so many school owners go through, right? Is you provide so much value. I think most martial arts school owners out there charge, provide 10x the value for what they actually charge. And so restructuring and just, battling with the ethics of can I actually charge what I'm worth was a big thing to overcome. So how was that for you guys going through that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Just so I can sort of build on this as well, George, it wasn't just the pricing, it was the way that we structured our memberships. That was key as well. So
Yeah.
basically, business model that I did for Seven Strikes Martial Arts was a copy and paste of what I did since I was 15, right? So, you don't know what you don't know. So everything was just, oh yeah, copy and paste. This worked. Let's just keep doing this. And you find nothing really changes, it's just the same sort of wheel spinning. And I remember because we were in business 2 years. This is our third year in business. So we were running a Seven Strikes Martial Arts for 2 years before we reached out to you. And, nothing really changed over that time. And I was like, something's got to give. We want to make sure that we can build a successful business that provides for our family. That was our why. We wanted to create something that, I could pass on to my kids down the track and that Amy and I, my wife, could make a living off. So yeah, we were charging the same prices that we did, for the past few years since COVID, and there was no membership, so it was basically a pay-as-you-go kind of service. So people could just not turn up one day, or they could just never come back. Yeah, there was just the norm. Okay, we'll just get new people in, and there was no real structure to it. And I think that was a big thing, is making sure that we had the memberships set up right, and then also pairing that with the price increase. So making sure that we were charging the right amount for our services. So they kind of went hand in hand. And that was the thing that changed everything for us.
And was the backlash that you feared, was that sort of on par, or what was the general reaction from your students when you made those changes?
All in all, it was super positive. A lot of the things that we were fearing, like when you think of the worst case scenario, it's like, oh, no one is going to show up, everyone's going to leave, and we're going to start from scratch. And we kind of quickly worked out, we're like, oh, okay, well, this isn't going to be for everybody. People were treating us as sort of that sort of last option, I suppose you could say. People would just come and go, and they felt like they could just come and do a couple of classes here, leave, come back whenever they wanted to. And we were sort of like a last resort. People had soccer, they had football, they had swimming, and we were like the afterthought. You know what I mean? So those sort of people that had us in that category, obviously when we made the changes, a lot of them didn't stay. What that helped us do was identify the students and the families that really did see value, and wanted to be part of this change with us, go through this journey with us, and remain as part of the community. So yeah, we quickly worked out that we'd have to lose like just over 50% of our student base to basically sort of be exactly where we were. So we're like, okay, well, do we think we can keep over 50%? And we were confident with that. So yeah, it was pretty scary, man. But once we did it, there was no turning back.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to you guys for like persevering and sticking through and making those changes. You pointed on something there, and it just, if I think of a reference, because I think so many school owners, we talk about undercharging, and sometimes there is the stigma in the industry that you've got to be the cheapest, and it's almost like everyone's on. Well, a lot. I'm not saying everyone, but there's a big portion of the industry that's got this race to the bottom, and the minute anybody charges above them, it's like you can't do that, like throw ethics in. But it just stands true that when people pay, they pay attention. And you were mentioning there like swimming and soccer and everything, like it or not. But if you've got three activities that your kids are doing, and one is a premium, two is a premium, one is cheap, which one do you prioritize? There's subconsciously, if something's got a give in priority or in attendance, it's going to be the cheaper thing, right?
Mm.
It's just a thing that, well, we don't, it's just martial arts. We're not paying much for it. The value is gigantic and enormous. We know that, but from their perspective, it's just the thing that it's not as valuable
Yep.
because price dictates value as well. And so sometimes just doing that raises the bar of people paying more attention and being more committed to the thing that they're doing.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. It's a real shift in mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Okay, cool. So we did the big price change.
Yep.
So here's and I want you to probably share more in the story because you had a full-time job still happening, right? At the
Yes,
time.
yeah, I did. Yeah.
And
So I
Amy
was
as well, or was Amy still on
Amy as
maternity
well. Yeah,
leave?
yeah. So yeah, when we started the business, Amy, she's been in finance for wow, like 10, 15 years. So she had a job in finance and I was an operations manager for a building company. And we've been doing that. We were doing that pretty much as soon as we started our business. So we were running the business. We were working full-time jobs through that period. We got married as well. We fell pregnant with our first son and it was all happening. Everything happened. So felt like that 2 years was just nuts. And so I think that was when he was born, especially. He was born in November last year, and that was another big factor in us wanting to make the change. We didn't want to be stuck in full-time jobs, and we didn't want to just be half in on our own business. And we wanted to be able to spend more time with him and be able to have something to pass on, I suppose you could say, have a legacy. So yeah, that was another big factor in us reaching out to you, George, was that I was an operations manager for 5 years. So, and I was able to step away from that role halfway through this year.
Congrats.
Appreciate it.
So cool. I mean, you guys did it, right? So well deserved. And you had all the foundations there. It was just moving a couple of things around to make it worthy of being able to give up the full-time jobs. That's just awesome. So how's things different now? Like if you think of your day to day, like just a couple of years, 2024, we're talking about, obviously recording this in 2025. How's your day to day different now? Because I mean, you guys had a lot going on, the pregnancy, both full-time employed, and now it's all eyes on Seven Strikes Martial Arts.
Yep.
How's the day to day operate different?
Yeah, look, I think the big thing or the thing that matters the most to us is we get to wake up and, be with our son in the morning. We get to have breakfast together. We want to do a morning walk. We can do that. When I was working this other job, I would be out of the house at 5 a.m. and I wouldn't get home until like 8:30 at night. And that was Monday to Friday. And then I would teach on Saturday, teach on Sundays. So obviously, when in the early stages of, when we had Cohen, my son, I would only see him maybe on Sunday afternoons, Saturday afternoons. I
Wow.
wouldn't get to spend much time with him at all. So the massive thing for us is that we just get to spend more time as a family. From a business perspective, the day to day is we're able to really focus on our business, be able to provide a really good service from a customer standpoint to being able to call leads, be able to actually speak with our members, be able to train more. I'm a big believer in if you're going to provide a service and teach martial arts, you've got to walk the walk yourself. So being able to dedicate more time to training is a big thing as well. But yeah, we're able to basically, like, everyone thinks you left 2 full-time jobs and you're now working on your business. You must have heaps more time. It's not really the case. You're still doing a lot of work, but it's more meaningful. You're doing something for yourself and something that actually matters.
100%. So where to now? Like what's the big vision? Because you've got, it's 8 part-time locations running.
Correct. Yep.
8
Yep.
part-time locations. There's 350 students. Uniquely in your operations that you run the multiple locations. So I guess that's logistics. Great that you got the lower overheads and everything's growing. We had the Facebook call this morning. I know you guys weren't on it, but we were just doing reviews on the ad accounts. And like there's a good 24 leads that came in the last 7 days over the locations. So like things are like, you got this momentum going.
Yep.
What's the big plans for you now moving forward?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. So I suppose we still want to refine our timetable a little bit. Our timetable, we changed sort of halfway through the year as well. And just for a bit of context around that, we would run, say, 4 to 5 classes an afternoon. Now we're running like 9 to 10 classes per day. So we changed our timetable around a lot. We've got a lot more classes available. Sort of want to tweak that a little bit, refine it a little bit more, make it better, work a little bit more on our upgrade programs as well. But the end goal still remains the same. We want to get a full-time training center open, and that's our goal for next year for 2026. We're still going to be making sure that we have our satellite schools open. That's something that we want to make sure that we're still providing to the communities that we're in. But the ones that are sort of in that close radius or close proximity, I should say, to where we open a full-time center, they will get the benefits of being able to have full-time place that they can call.
Love it. Awesome, Daniel. So just a question on partners, just playing this small part in your journey. What's been the most valuable for you out of the whole partners group? And
Yeah, it's a good question. It's definitely the people, George. It's the conversations you have. It's the backwards and forwards brainstorming. Being able to go to the intensive this year was magnificent. Being around so many like-minded martial arts school owners. I think that's the real benefit of being part of this, George. Is just the conversations you have and the brainstorming that goes on. There's a lot that would, like when we did join up with you and we started our journey with partners and made all these changes, it really sort of identified the knowledge gaps that we had. So we did learn a lot about, how we can manage our business better. This is going away from all the pricing stuff, but just how we can manage our memberships better. We can improve our sales better, having our sales conversations better, retention strategies, timetable strategies, leadership programs. The amount of stuff that we've learned, I could go on for a long time, but I think the best thing is the people and the conversations that you have with the people that are part of partners.
that's great. And I give credit to everybody in the community for that, because I feel I play a small part in that role of marketing and the systems, and probably more. I feel at times I'm more curator of knowing who's got which knowledge in which aspect, and just being able to identify that and bring that to the light. I love being in partners for that same reason. And that sounds weird, but just because every week we jump on the calls and it's like there's just always a cool conversation, because everything evolves. And obviously there's the foundational business stuff that doesn't change, but how that fits the current market conditions is always a evolving organism, so to
Yeah.
speak. Who do you recommend partners to?
Look, any martial arts school owner that feels like they've hit a bit of a glass ceiling, or even if they've broken through that glass ceiling and they still think that there's something that they can, even if there's something minor that they can change or move the needle on a little bit in their business, I couldn't recommend it enough. Pretty much for any martial arts school owner.
Very cool. So, Daniel, thanks for jumping on. I'd love to continue this conversation. So, let's take this one as a milestone, and we
Yep.
say, because we know what the next milestone is, open the new location. So let's schedule the next round 3 months after the new location is in operation. How's that?
Sounds good. That sounds like a plan. Yep.
Nothing like a bit of global accountability, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Thanks for that. No, love it. Love it.
That's cool. You also, I've really been enjoying your Instagram, just for the prolificness of always training, always doing the pad rounds. If that's cool, if you want to share it, where can people find out more about you, reach out and follow along on your journey?
Yeah. So just if you search my name, Daniel Jancek on Instagram, Facebook, I'm on there as well. Most of my content remains on Instagram though. Seven Strikes Martial Arts. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook as well. Yeah, as George mentioned, I'm sort of always posting different things about our club, sharing videos, success stories, always promoting the kids. And if you search it up and support, it'll be much appreciated.
Awesome. And I want to do something. I had another case study episode 163 with Tom Lowe, and we had the same discussion. He jumped on, and his wife wasn't present on the podcast, but it was very evident how his wife played a big part in the success of the martial arts business. And so just want to give a shout out to Amy. I hope you don't mind. Is that
Nah,
cool?
absolutely. She's the glue that holds it all together, mate. I'll be the first to admit that. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So just hats off to Amy, because I mean, as much as chatting to Daniel, yeah, would have loved to have you on too. Just I know you play a big part in the role and the strategy and everything's just a shout out to Amy there as well. Cool. Awesome, mate. Well, thanks for being on, and look forward to chatting to you on round 2.
Thanks for having me, George.
Have a good one.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.